Good afternoon. As it is 1 p.m., I will call the City Council workshop of January 27, 2026 to order. This will be both a physical and a virtual.
Hey, I've added that.
Sorry.
For tomorrow, 1 p.m.
This will be both a physical and a virtual meeting, may be viewed on YouTube and on Facebook following the meeting. Public comment is not normally taken at workshop meetings, although the council may allow or request public participation on action items. We have several action items on our agenda today, so bear with us as we move through all of those. I would like to welcome all in attendance today for today's meeting. And in honor of one of our great community leaders passing yesterday, I would like us to observe a moment of silence for Pastor David Laura as he passed away yesterday. So, Sunday. So, thank you very much. Pastor Laura was a friend to many of us and a pastor to many of us, but more than that, he loved our community and did so much for all of us, and we will miss him dearly. So, congratulations to our Seattle Seahawks. They're going on to the Super Bowl. It was a great game. For those that weren't able to attend, I'm sorry, but it was a lot of fun. All right, and that is all I've got, with the exception of a few other things later, but I will first call upon the city administrator to introduce her monthly report to all of us and give us all of her information. No, am I not doing that?
So we moved, what I'm going to just let you know is that we're moving with the new council workshop timeline. We are doing a different setup for the report. So I'm not doing it this month because we're getting the data together to present a fuller packet next month. So.
Okie dokie. That works for me. All right, as I noted, we have several items for action on our agenda today. Since council did not approve the combined list of reappointments, I had staff break out the list by individual advisory board, commission, and committee to allow us to move this item forward. I am postponing the action on the city's Parks and Recreation Commission appointments to the February 3rd regular council meeting in order to take into consideration any outcome from the council's discussion regarding nepotism on this agenda today. The first action item that we have is approval of minutes, special meeting council retreat of January 8th, 2026. Thank you to our city clerk for providing these minutes with a much higher than usual level of detail after our equipment did not fully record a portion of our off-site meeting. Staff will continue the discussion of council priorities at an upcoming workshop with council. Are there any questions or comments from council about the minutes as they've been presented to you all? Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Above and beyond, Julie, thank you. That must have been a lot of work. So I would move to approve the minutes of the council retreat on January 8th.
All right, we have a motion to approve the minutes as presented by Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Councilmember Merrow. Is there any further discussion before I call for a vote? All right, hearing none, all in favor, raise your right hand. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, action item is reappointments, Arts Commission, position 3 and 5. Call upon council for their questions and comments at this time and reappointing those two positions. Are there any questions or comments? If not, I would entertain a motion so we can move through these quickly. Yes.
I move that we approve as presented for the Arts Commission.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion to approve the appointments for positions 3 and 5 to the Arts Commission by Councilmember Merrow, seconded by Councilmember Wiggenstein. Is there any further discussion before I call for a vote? Absolutely, yes.
When it comes to reappointments, does the staff liaison, is it like an automatic, or is there some discussion at all?
You mean with the reappointees?
In general, when someone is reappointed, is there any
Generally, there is not
just
any
an automatic.
discussion. The only one where there has been discussion is the one where there's questions in that. And I met with Mrs. Stuckey this morning, as well as Councilmember Marshall and Mayor Pro Tem, and I think we have a better, clear direction in going forward. But yes, generally, no. Reappointments are just...
Sorry, let me.
I don't have an issue with reappointing people that have already served.
No, I phrased my question poorly. Does the staff liaison, and I'm talking about in general.
So like the
do
director?
Well, I'm just saying, like, I'll use the cab. Let's say that Chief Slowick had an issue with one of those appointees. Do they bring that to your attention? That's what I'm asking.
Yes, they would. Yes,
Okay.
yes, thank you. That's a good point, but yes, they would. All All right, so any other questions, concerns before I call for a vote? All right, all in favor, raise, oh, wait, no, wait. Did we actually make a motion? I'm sorry. Are we on the second one or still the first one? Okay, thank you. All in favor, please raise your right hand. All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. So action item, reappointments, Community Police Advisory Board, CAB positions 1 and 5. Any questions or comments from council on these two positions?
Mr. Mayor, would it be okay to say the names of the appointees, would you mind, if you know?
I don't have those in front of me.
I just
Can
don't
you?
offhand remember. It's fine. You don't need to. It's in a different packet.
Mayor,
No, never mind. It's not that important.
Mayor, I'm happy to state those for you.
Thank
if
you.
you'd
So
like.
for the CAB committee, it's Mr. Buchanan and Mr. Malloy on those two positions.
Ms. Buchanan.
Ms. Buchanan, I'm sorry. Okay, so any other questions, comments? All right, I would entertain a motion then to approve those two positions.
So
I
moved.
would move.
All right, so we have a motion to approve positions 1 and 5 to the CAB Commission by Councilmember Marshall. Seconded by Councilmember Marrow. Is there any further discussion? Hearing, seeing none, all in favor, raise your right hand. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Next item, action item, is reappointments, Historic Preservation Commission positions 1 and 3. Any questions or comments about these two positions? And Ms. Clerk, could you please give us those names?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. For position 1, it's Gideon Kaufman, and for position 3, it's Nick Hamden.
Okay, so any discussion or questions with respect to these two positions and these reappointments? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion. Yes, Mr. Marrow, Councilmember Marrow.
I move that we approve the positions as presented.
Great.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to approve positions 1 and 3 to the Historic Preservation Commission by Councilmember Marrow, seconded by Councilmember Marshall. Any further discussion before I call for a vote? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your right hand. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Action item, next action item is reappointment Lodging Tax Advisory Committee Receiver 1. And Julie, who is that person?
Mayor, that is Ms. Alenda Jenkins.
All right, so are there any questions or comments with respect to this reappointment? All right, hearing, seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion to approve reappointment Lodging Tax Advisory Committee Receiver 1 by Councilmember Wittgenstein, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem. Is there any further discussion before I call for a vote? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your right hand. Passes unanimously. Councilmember Peterson, did you have your hand up? Okay, thank you. All right. All right, moving on to appointments, Marina Advisory Commission positions 1, 3, and 7. And Julie, those are?
For position 1, it's Kathy Process. Position 3 is J.J. Jones, and position 7 is Louis Foster.
Great, thank you so much. Are there any questions or comments with respect to the reappointment of these 3 positions on the Marina Advisory Commission? All right, hearing, seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Motion.
So moved? All right, thank you, Councilmember Arms. We have a motion to reappoint Marina Advisory Commissions 1, 3, and 7 by
Second.
Commissioner Arms, seconded by Councilmember Marrow. Any further discussion before I call for a vote? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your right hand. All right, that passes unanimously. One more, you guys. All right, reappointments, Planning Commission, positions 1 and 3.
Mayor, for position 1, that's Jeffrey Ward, and position 3 is Cody Bacon.
Great, thank you so much, Julie. Is there any further discussion or comments with respect to these 2 reappointments? Hearing, seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I move that we reappoint the Planning Commission's position 1 and 3.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to reappoint Planning Commission positions 1 and 3 by Councilmember Peterson, seconded by Councilmember Marrow. Is there any further discussion before I call for a vote? Hearing, seeing none, all in favor, raise your right hand. Passes unanimously. Thank you guys. Again, that was a lot, but thank you very much for working through that process. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, if I may, before we move on, there are a number of, these are all reappointments of people that are already sitting on the boards, but there are a number of vacancies. What, if anything, is the city or is the staff or are you or should we maybe be doing to solicit
Yeah.
volunteers and people? We're reaching out to people. Is there a plan? Do you have a plan?
Yeah, great
A
question.
system? Should we help?
Yeah, so one of the things that Maggie is reaching out via the website, and she's also doing social media blasts. We're trying to solicit that way. I know the existing commission chair folks are also looking for other folks to sit on their commissions as well. In addition to that, we're talking it up at like the Right Blend that's coming up this week, and we're reaching out to folks that we think may have an interest in a specific area and seeing if they have an interest to participate on those commissions. So what else? What am I missing?
The biggest thing is if you have interactions with people and you hear that they're interested in being involved in our city government, that's the best place to have those conversations. One of the recent ads to the Planning Commission came out of a conversation about what they could do to help, and this being an area that they had some expertise in. And so we're just asking people to apply, have those conversations. Even some former employees have come in and volunteered. So really, it's just having those conversations with people and advocating for it in as many avenues as you can when we're out in public, wherever.
And aren't most of our boards and commissions relatively full at this point, or?
We
No.
have several that have some spots available.
Okay, yeah, I don't have,
We do have a few openings, Mayor and Sabrina, and we also have openings for student involvement. So we are also doing some outreach with the high school as well.
great. Thank you, Maggie.
Welcome.
All right, great question. Yeah, good question. So, continue to talk to folks and get people to apply. We're, yes.
Thank you, Mayor, and Mayor Pro Tem and Mayor, I support your positions with regard to this, especially when we're dealing with volunteers, and we're looking for ones that are qualified, not just motivated, but just able to contribute substantially. The idea that we just put out an ad, of course, that's not just a shotgun approach is what it is, and we need to really have a targeted approach. So promotion and advancement, actually, to put it bluntly, well-considered marketing is essential.
Thank you for that. So before we move into the next draft ordinance and call upon Hillary to present that to you all, I just want to reiterate here in this workshop to each of you how much I value and appreciate your input and your cooperation, and sometimes having some contentious conversations amongst ourselves. I appreciate different viewpoints, but when we are having these conversations and we're addressing things, I would appreciate it if you would address them to me as the chair of this meeting and not go at one another individually, so that we keep this as civil as possible and keep the personal feelings out of things. I was a little disheartened by our last meeting. It was a lot. I was in Olympia, but I was watching, and I would just like to see us do better. And I work really hard to work with each of you. I don't always agree with each of you, but I work really hard to get along with all of you and move our agenda forward for what's best for our city. And I'd like to continue to see us improve upon that and do a better job in how we communicate even on the dais. So with that being said, we're going to move into discussion draft ordinance adopting Oak Harbor Municipal Code Section 2.65.140, Nepotism relating to boards, commissions, and committees. And here to introduce this topic is our City Attorney, Hillary Evans.
Hello, good afternoon. I don't have a lot to say because I feel like this has been discussed quite a bit, both at our workshop and at the last meeting. I've presented with you some options for ordinances that you could adopt into your municipal code that would regulate relationships and appointments with boards and commissions. Obviously, you can do whatever you like. We can make additional changes. We can narrow the scope. I found a definition for relative that I popped in there that seems to be commonly used. Of course, you can expand or you can narrow that as well. And as I think we discussed at our last meeting, something that I would like the council to consider if you're going to adopt something like this is when you want it to be effective. So would you want it to be effective immediately, or would you want it to be effective upon reappointment of all the people who are currently serving? So with that, I know that you guys want to get right to discussion. I'll let you chat and I'll be here for questions.
Thank you, Hillary. Thank you, Hillary. With that, I'm going to open it up to council for your questions and comments on the draft ordinance at this time. Thank you. Don't all speak at once. I didn't mean to quash all of the talking. Again, I just want it to happen in a cordial way this time. So, yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
We were presented with two very different options. To summarize, just for those of you watching at home that haven't necessarily been through the whole packet, we've got a draft option here that basically says the council will not appoint or confirm appointment of relatives of council members to boards, commissions, committees, or other appointed positions, like, period. Just no relatives in any capacity when it comes to appointments. And then option 2 is that no council member can serve on the same, like, we can appoint relatives, but we can't appoint our own relatives, and we can't serve on the same board as our relatives, et cetera, et cetera. So it doesn't disqualify someone in our proximity from participating or volunteering. We just have to have kind of a more hands-off approach when it comes to that specific person. Personally, I'm in favor of option 2. I think that those are common sense guardrails. I think option 1 is, I think it's too limiting, it's too harsh. I don't think we live in quite a big enough city to disqualify the entire family members of people that, make a habit of being involved in the community. So personally, I'm in favor of option 2.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Arms.
I agree with the Mayor Pro Tem, and also the same reason. We don't have that broad of a community yet. And also, we have asked if you have somebody that serves, that's family or something like that, we've asked you to recuse when we've made a decision. I think it's too restrictive. It's hard enough to get people to come. And, it's an arduous process anyway, and then you're saying no to people that maybe are more qualified than we think. Anyway, that's my voice.
Thank you, Councilmember Arms. Councilmember Peterson.
Thank you. First of all, I think it's very important that we have these discussions. And I would agree with Mayor Pro Tem about number 2. I'm not sure that I agree with all of the people included in what is considered a relative, but that's neither here nor there. I'm going to go back to what I originally said. When a committee that a family member, a relative sits on, brings something forward to this body, I believe that the council member whose relative is on, that council member should recuse themselves from that vote. I am adamant about the power of the pillow, and y'all can call me old-fashioned or whatever you want when things happen at home. I've told family members, I don't like that call you made on the baseball field. How about you fix your own dinner? I know how it works. So I would be in favor of number 2, but plenty of times council members have recused themselves from many things, and I think we should recuse if our family member is bringing something forward to the body.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Stuckey.
So, I too am in favor of 2 for a number of reasons. One, our own city attorney, when we were asking about restrictions, stated it's pretty darn rare to have something that's just a blanket, no family members, so why are we being the rare ones? We have enough people in this town to fill these positions without family members, but it's also a matter of getting people to apply. And if we had people knocking down the door, maybe this would be a little bit different. I also look at our employee handbook, which apparently this part of this conversation was spurned from that, which even in the handbook allows family members to work for the city with guardrails. Guardrails that I definitely am in favor of. I agree with everything that's been said. We shouldn't serve on the same one. We shouldn't appoint the same one. I do hesitate with the voting only because sometimes you'll have a vote that will come to us and it's an ordinance, and it'll be a recommendation, and it'll be 4-3. And we're taking that recommendation as the whole of that body, not as individuals. So it's not like one person on there is saying we should do this. It's the whole body of that board. So I would have a hard time, someone for like myself, being able to not vote on any of those items that ever come in front of that body, especially when that body is not always unified. It is strictly advisory, and we don't always agree with our family members. I know I certainly have disagreed with my family member on more than one occasion. My son and I argue a lot. I'm kidding. Also, when we look at the most restrictive option, the example originally was given to us was Kirkland. And I've said this before, let's remember, it's a different form of government. There's one less check and balance. I mean, here, mayor appoints, we confirm. There, council is a weak mayor system. So it is different. So I agree that I think 2, and I'm happy to have these guardrails in there, and I think there needs to be guardrails. So I'm for the conversation.
Thank you, Councilmember Stuckey. Councilmember Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm sure it comes as no surprise. I'm in favor of 1. I think that we could narrow the definition of relative. I don't think it needs to be as broad sweeping as including aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews. You know, I do agree with Councilmember Peterson that there is this power of the pillow. You know, there is conversations that take place within our own home. You know, we share things with our significant others. We share things with our family that could have sway, you know, and to avoid the voting conflict, to avoid any appearance of conflict, I think this is the cleanest and easiest way. I've heard what Hillary had to say, but I hearken back to what Chief Dresker said at one time when we were talking about getting the bat. He said he doesn't care what other communities do. He doesn't serve other communities. He doesn't work for them. He works for Oak Harbor, and that's what we do. We represent Oak Harbor. We represent what's in the best interest of our community. And I just think for simplicity purposes, for the cleanliness of it, for all appearances, I think this is the easiest, you know, and strongest and best way to go. And I would be more than happy to narrow that scope of what relatively is because we're not looking to exclude everybody, but I do think that those close relationships that take place at home, you know, spouses, children, those are the ones that we have the potential to have the most influence over and have the most influence from. And so for me, I support the first option.
Thank you, Councilmember Marshall. Councilmember Romero.
I support what Councilmember Marshall is stating, but I also wanted to add with regard to option 1 is that I have firsthand experience with regard to nepotism issues in law enforcement in a very small district of responsibility. And I'm mindful of the fact that family loyalties and family interests can take on what you call a life of their own. So that is to say that pretty soon that the family goals end up being pretty much what's best for Oak Harbor. And then it comes to the meetings, and that's the agenda that's being presented. So I favor a stricter version with regard to the nepotism clause or the nepotism issue. And in order to keep this in mind is that we're setting a standard too, because if we go with a looser manner, then pretty soon everybody's going to be recruiting all their family members, and it become was it something versus McCoys, the Hatfields and McCoys about their interests. Not everybody understands what I'm speaking of, but I'm just describing to you that internecine conflicts, that is to say, you know, conflicting interests between particular family groups is infamous, I would say. So in any event, I support the more restrictive version. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Romero. Councilmember Wittgenstein.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, number 1 is restrictive. Yes, it's pretty much blanket, cut and dry, black and white. There doesn't seem to be much gray area. Maybe that's good. I'm not so sure. Oak Harbor traditionally hasn't always been a city of 24,000, 25,000 people. I was just talking with some relatives this weekend, And, they can remember in the late 50s and early 60s when the population was, under 10,000. That's not that long ago, and we've grown a decent amount. When we're treating mental health, we're treating people that have got some serious, struggles in life. We treat them with the least restrictive access to care. And when we're talking about a city growth and a city growing, getting bigger, if you look through the history, is that mine? Yeah. Oh, sorry. Weird. Oh, I apologize. If we're looking at, where was I?
Access to health, least restrictive.
Yeah, this least restrictive option is a stepping stone towards it. And that's how I'm kind of looking at this. I'm looking at the same volunteers that step up year after year, decade after decade. All communities have this. There's a percentage of people that are give themselves to service to the community. And there's families that do that. And so I don't like the idea of closing the door for potential people that want and willing to serve us. If we've got guardrails in place, let's take baby steps. Let's take the least restrictive pathway to this. Let's not just cut and say, hey, we're going to draw a line and this is that and whatnot. Because I think we're seeing globally and nationally what it looks like when you draw a line. It doesn't look very pretty. And so I think we really should, I'm in favor of 2. If we're going to take an action and bring nepotism into a policy, let's do it where we can always make it stricter later if we need to, but I think you'll find we probably won't. That's where I'm at.
Thank you. Yes, Councilmember Stuckey.
Just wanted to respond to some of the comments by Councilmember Morrow. I mean, if a family member wanted to stack the deck, they could have done it already. We didn't have this policy. We don't have any policy. So, and even with stacking the deck, it's quite frankly the mayor's job to appoint and say, whoa, that's too much before it even gets to us. And one thing I particularly like about the restrictions is it's to you can't serve on a non-advisory board. I've heard the comment before on a board that's not advisory, one that has power. Because I've heard a couple times the concern about law enforcement. I don't think a family member should be on one of these boards that has any ability to have the influence over a hiring decision of a police officer. That's not good. But the idea that we're kind of stacking the deck, I can understand the argument. It hasn't happened yet. My only other question, just procedural, was there a reason why this wasn't an action item on this meeting? That was kind of a discussion. I mean, there's probably a logical reason. I just would like to know what it is.
Sabrina.
Because we've talked about this a couple times. We have talked about it a couple times, as the city attorney noted. So I'm just curious why it was not an action item despite requested. So
I'm sorry, say that again?
It's not an action item on the agenda.
It's because this was the discussion that we agreed to at the retreat. So at the retreat, we talked about making this the discussion of the 2 options that had been laid out, and then bringing it forward as an action item when we actually decide on what the code changes that's going into the municipal code. So because there's 2 options before you, we need to decide which option you wanted to move forward.
Mayor Pro Tem.
My apologies. I am done.
Does that preclude us from taking action on this item?
Yeah, because we haven't noticed it.
Yeah, we haven't noticed it, and
Okay,
it's a
I was gonna
code
say,
change.
So, yeah, if I were, so I wouldn't make a motion to adopt option 1 or 2 today.
No.
We would just, based on our discussion, staff will bring us
Yeah.
something at the next
And I
meeting.
was actually going to address that when you guys are done.
Okay,
Perfect. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
Okay.
Hillary.
And quickly, I'm hearing people say that they'd like to change the definition of family. That can be very easily done. If you guys want to chime in and give me direction on what you might like to see, I'm happy to edit it.
So is that's within option 1 though? Is that what I'm hearing?
It's in both.
It's in both. The definition of relative.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think it would make sense to, when this does come back in front of us, to make a decision, to make whatever decision effective immediately. Because it doesn't currently apply to anyone currently sitting on, so, yeah, I would, yeah, again, I'd be in favor of option 2, and I think that when we make the decision, it should just be effective, at that
Yeah,
time.
I got it. I am gonna let her finish speaking. So, thank you, though. And before I call upon anyone else, I think what I'm also hearing Hillary say, though, is if you have suggestions for language change, we should probably try to get those worked in at this point in time so that this is done, so that we can actually bring a completed ordinance forward for voting in essentially a week. So if you guys have ideas about what you would like to see in this ordinance now, as far as the language, I would appreciate hearing those thoughts and those suggestions and pushing those forward. And I mean, because it looks like it's pretty clear in the direction that this is going, based upon the way I'm tallying things right now. And again, I understand that that can change, but I'm still saying we can still hammer out the language now and have that definitive in the ordinances so that we have a very clear idea about what we're voting on in a week. So with that, Councilmember Peterson, you had your hand up.
I'm sorry, I understand there is apparently some desire not to have a council member not vote. I also was hearing in the discussion that chairmanship may be a bridge too far for some people because a chairman holds additional sway over a committee. So perhaps a restriction is that no council members family member can be a chair but can be a member. I don't know. I'm just trying to hear and see what's out there and come to some kind of a consensus, but that's just another thing that crossed my mind. I'm still feel like I'm still pretty on board for the non-vote, but I would also consider the non-chairman role.
Yeah, so I appreciate that feedback and I appreciate that input. One of the things that I would, say to all of you is you all sit in the capacity of a liaison on these boards and commissions. And it is your responsibility when you feel like a conversation is going off track to work with the staff director that's usually present for those meetings as well. And then in turn also have a follow-up conversation or email with myself and maybe that staff person so that I can make sure that maybe I'm attending the next meeting or just even calling that chairperson in and having a conversation about, we need to be careful about this because this is kind of overstepping what your authority is and get that back on track. So this is, I'm taking this as a learning opportunity for myself as well to be a little more engaged in having conversations and more interaction with the chairmans of these different commissions as well as each of you as liaisons. But I'm also going to push back on each of you and say that I rarely get participation from most of you when I call upon you for reports from your boards and commissions. A lot of you are silent. So I would like to see you all speaking up and having conversations at that time and keeping me in the loop and also keeping this entire body in the loop during a contemporaneous basis throughout the year as we're working through the year so that we don't have this situation again. Because I'm going to tell you the one thing that has been difficult for me is having been somebody who sat on this dais and faced our public and been ridiculed the way I have. I have a lot of sympathy for Carrie Stuckey and what she's been through in the last couple of weeks as well. And I met with her this morning and conveyed that to her. It's not an easy thing to sit up here and have arrows slung at you the way that she feels that that's happened to her and she feels like she's been put on the spot. So, and I certainly don't want us doing that to any of our volunteers either. So this harkens back to, what somebody from the Salary Commission went through last year also. So we need to be treating our volunteers a little better. So with that, I will yield back to you guys and let you continue your discussion on language. Yes, Councilmember Stuckey.
I'm good with the more non-restrictive, and when you talk about language, I can honestly go either way. I mean, the way it is now, or it can just be one step. So parents, children, spouse, but I don't know how, immediate. I don't know how I mean, I know some people that are really close with their cousin, but not their brother. Ask who, your point. Hillary. What am I asking, Hillary?
Just ask her for clarification. What would be your recommendation for how far do you delineate this information out?
I mean, I see that you put the family here as suggested. I don't think we ever talked about specifically family. I understand this is a little more on the unusual side to have this ordinance to begin with, but of the ordinances that you see, how restrictive are they when it comes to family? For the ones you see.
Well, I put in the most expansive because I figured it would be easier to cut things than it would be to create things. So, for instance, I don't know that you want to go to grandparent, grandchild. I don't know that you want to go to aunt, uncle, niece, nephew, or the in-laws. I mean, it would be easy if you were inclined after step parent and step parent in-law, you could just slash everything after that. I don't think there is a typical. You know, if we're worried about spouses, parents, and children, that makes sense to me. But I put in more so that you could cut because I thought that was easier.
Thank you, Hillary. And Sabrina, did you have something you wanted to add?
I just want to share from the perspective of human resources and myself and some of the conversations we've had around employees losing family members. We've expanded the list of family members because of that. So I agree with Hillary on those cuts you could make, but it is difficult with blended families nowadays that we do have more connections than we think sometimes in a community or in a family. So for that reason, I think that's why there's things like step parents included or step grandparents, because we've run into that when people have passed away and staff really feeling like there needed to be an awareness of having those family connections. So I just wanted to share that because that is a perspective as part of this.
Thank you, Sabrina. Yes, Councilmember Stuckey.
If she doesn't mind me putting her on the spot, we do have our HR director. I would love to hear any thoughts that you might have as someone with an HR background. When you see things that come with nepotism from, say, an employee standpoint, how often in your line of work do you normally think out as far as relation?
I think as Sabrina mentioned, we have the definition in our policy manual under family medical leave, so it has been really specific to leaves of absence and to bereavement leave. And as Sabrina mentioned, it's needed to be expanded over the past couple of years because of the multi-generations that we've seen in the household. So yeah, I think that we see it a lot when it comes up relating to relationships and immediate family member definition. We don't see a whole lot of nepotism come up related to what you're speaking to, related to volunteers and boards and commissions.
So with that in mind, and part of this conversation was spurred from the employee manual. And again, the employee manual does not restrict family members from working from the city. There just is the guardrails. I would be okay with taking the definition that is used by the city currently as far as relationship goes and copying that over to this. And I don't remember that off the top of my head exactly where that is, but I don't have a problem with just taking that, copy and paste. So it's consistent with the employees. That's all.
Councilmember Peterson, did you have something you wanted to add?
Thank you. I did. I want it very clear that for me, this is about process and not about personalities and not about any one person. And it is hurtful, and I get it. Sometimes things that we do are not squishy. And I believe that the members of this council are interested in process and not personality. And I'm glad that you brought that up. I just think it's really important that we're trying to set policy for the city and not necessarily spank someone.
Thank you. Yes, Councilmember Romero.
Thank you, Mayor. I was reflecting on Councilmember Peterson's comment with regard to the chairs, and it is true the chairs have a certain amount of direction and authority, and I would favor, as a general principle, a more restrictive approach, because I've seen what human nature is throughout life, and I just think the guardrails of a more constrained version better serve the long-term interests of the city, because if it's good for one, it's good for all. But I'm also mindful of Councilmember Wittgenstein's comment that if we needed to be more restrictive, we can do that. And then finally, I would like to say that I have no ill will about this, but I am taking a strong position. Thank you.
Councilmember Arms.
Well, when we say excluding the chair, and you're right, that is our job as the advisory board. And so we're delegating, we're saying, well, you can't do that because, so what chair are we going to get that maybe won't have some conflict that we're not even aware of? I think leaving it alone, and that is our responsibility. And thank you for reminding us that if we have a problem with something that goes on the advisory board, then we should bring it to you. That should come to you, and we should hammer it out with who's ever in charge, whether it's like the Marina or the parks or whatever. And I'll say I'm probably guilty of that. I kind of let it go. But now that you reminded us, I think that's a good opportunity for us to remember if we have a conflict, then we need to do it. But, we keep playing this semantic of trying to say this, that, and the other. I mean, I think we just kind of leave it as is. See how it goes. If we have a problem, like we said, we can change it. But thank you again for reminding us of our responsibility.
Yes, and, one of the promises I'm making to each of you today, and I made this promise to Carrie and to Mayor Pro Tem and Eric earlier, is I plan to visit each of these boards and commissions in the next month or two and do some overall basic training and address whatever, expectations and duties and responsibilities and where those things lie. And then also, have a conversation with the council liaison there as well as the department director head. I'm also going to have this same meeting with all of my internal department heads and have an expectation with them about how they're to keep things on track during these meetings, what their roles are and responsibilities are. And then those will be topics of conversation that I have with them as I meet with them on a monthly basis, as well as when Sabrina meets with them. And if there's something that's brought to her attention, she'll of course share it with me, and then I will meet with them. That's the promise that I'm making to each of you today, that I will also be making to them in the coming month. So to help alleviate this going forward. So yes, Councilmember Stuckey.
Yeah, to piggyback on that, because I think as liaisons, there should be a little onus on us to be in communication with you. Otherwise, why have a liaison? But I will say, and this is a general statement, we also need to make sure we're at the majority of those meetings. I mean, this idea that we're missing a third of the meetings or something like that, if it's something that just doesn't work with one of our schedules or something like that, or it's difficult, then maybe we have a conversation. Yeah.
Or maybe even let me know and I can try to fit that in my calendar in your absence, because I will say, not to cut you off, but I just want to add to what you're saying. And I'm not putting anyone on the spot, I'm not naming names, but I have been in communication with multiple different boards throughout this last year where there have been complaints that the liaison from council has not been present for a majority of the meetings. And in some instances, for some of the boards, we haven't even been able to have a quorum because the liaison hasn't been there and constitutes part of the quorum. So
We're not part of
and
the
the,
quorum.
and the investment committee, is that not the case?
Some we are, but some we don't.
Yeah, but investment it does. So I am correct. I know you all want to say I'm not, but I am correct when it comes to investment committee. It does matter. So, and I'm happy to find those bylaws and point that out to you. So I'm not making this stuff up. I'm not coming up here and grandstanding. I'm speaking from things that have come to me and been presented to me, and I'm trying to be respectful of all of us and have a fruitful conversation so that we're moving into this new year in a very open and in transparent fashion. So.
Yeah, and so we're in total agreement. I mean, life happens. Sometimes you miss a meeting, and sometimes you dial it.
That's fine. Yeah.
But I mean, if we're going to have, I'm glad in the bylaw revision we had an amount of meetings that commissioners could miss. That should have, but I'm not sure if it does, but it should apply to ex officios. I mean, the same requirement we have on them, we should have on us. We shouldn't be missing a third of the meetings, and that's sometimes can be part of the communication issue. We need to make these people feel supported, and like it's of value to our time as council members. And so all I'm suggesting is let's make sure as council members we make every meeting possible, and if for some reason life happens, talk with the mayor and we can maybe work on a swap or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's all.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. And yeah, I think that gets to the heart of the bigger lesson here, which is better communication can prevent a number of unpleasant situations. And based on the conversation, and math is hard, but I think that I've got kind of a 5-2 sway happening here. So in the spirit of compromise, because it appears to me that most of the council is going to be going for option 2, and I understand that we have a couple of council people that are not going to be comfortable with that, and that's okay. You know, that's the process. We all have a chance to speak, and then we vote, and the chips, you know, they fall where they fall, and the decision is made, and then we move on, and that's the process, and we have to let it play out. But, you know, we all have to live with the decision at the end of the day, and have to have some comfort level, and I think that a lot of what we do is compromise. So while I personally think that there are enough checks and balances and guardrails in place, that a lot of these hypothetical gloom and doom scenarios aren't something that we need to worry about personally. Like not having family members as the chairs of the board, to me, that just seems like we're overcomplicating it, and it's too, you know, but in the spirit of compromise and making sure everybody has some level of comfort, I would be okay with if we went with option 2 and said, you know, council people can't serve on the same board, or if we do allow relatives of council people to sit on a board, that maybe they can't be the chair. I mean, I don't personally love it. I don't think it's necessary. But if that's what it would take to get buy-in from the council members that are leaning towards option 1, then I'd be willing to entertain that. Just throwing that out there. And I do agree that the definition of relative should be consistent throughout city policy. So instead of having that mean something different for each policy, then it needs to be the same definition across the board, whatever that may be. So yeah, again, well, personally, I think we're kind of making a mountain out of a molehill, or worrying about something that might not need to be worried about eventually. I do understand the prudence of not waiting until something becomes an issue to address it. And so I appreciate that, and the opportunity to try to put some guardrails in place before there is an issue. And I am willing to compromise on this, just to get us moving.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Peterson.
Well, so to move this forward, since I don't really know, except that Councilmember Stuckey is not in favor of not having the ability to vote if your family member sits on a commission. Can we poll the jury and find out, how do we do that? What's the process to find out where people are feeling about that?
Well, I think that you can all, take your turn and speak, yes, for sure, and weigh in on your position. That's what the workshop is all about. This is a much less formal process than a council meeting. So, whatever your position is on it, I just, again, I'm just going to reiterate here that a chairperson is no different than what I am. I sit here and I run this meeting. I don't make the legislative decisions. You guys make those. I can't even break a tie when it's an ordinance. I can't vote on those things. So there isn't, in my opinion, there isn't a lot of authority that you have in this position. The only authority you have is you have more responsibility in the way of agendas and keeping a meeting on track and doing things. So those are my 2 cents. But you guys, this is your decision. That you guys make the decisions, and you guys determine how the legislation goes. So
I think maybe I was misunderstood. My question was misunderstood. I'm sorry. And you're right about what you said about chairmanship.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to know how the rest of the council feels about not being able to vote if your spouse is on a commission that brings something forward.
Yeah, and what I'm happy to do is call on each of you individually and let you weigh in on that. Absolutely.
Okay,
and I think most of you are wanting to speak again anyway, so I'm happy to do that. We already know where Councilmember Stuckey stands. So I'm going to start down here with Councilmember Romero, then I'm going to come to Councilmember Marshall and just go around. So Councilmember Romero.
So Mayor Pro Tem, Councilmember Heisen, thank you for that compromise position. So I would consider changing my position to include the less restrictive version if the chairman or the chair position was restricted, so that the family member is not the chair. But I'm just putting that forward, not because it's my preference, but because I'm willing to negotiate and support. And of course, Chair Member Peterson, you brought up the concept of a family member not serving on the chair as the chair. So I'm just letting you know that I'm flexible with regard to this matter. And I did want to mention too that so that the council knows how I'd make my decisions. It's really I emphasize strongly as best I can data-driven decisions. So the matter of feeling about something is like the stock market. I feel like I'm going to buy something, but that's not data-driven, and you can make enormous misjudgments. But the emotional piece matters, but I'm just trying to state that I'm the law and order, nuts and bolts kind of person, and I go by the data. That's all I have.
So what you're saying is if the chairperson is restricted, you're willing to compromise and go with option 2?
Provided the wording is reflecting of that message, yes.
Okay. Councilmember Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. Hillary, am I missing something? I don't see anywhere in the second one where it says that a council member could not vote on the recommendations of the advisory board. So
Yeah, I have not included
so
that.
why are we discussing this then?
This is your discussion. She asked.
No,
She proposed it as an option.
you propose it as an option?
It says in here, I think I'm confused.
She just wanted a discussion about it. She asked for the discussion.
It does say no council member may vote on the appointment of a family member. What I'm asking to find out is what the council feels about the, if a commission brings forward something to the committee, or to the council, the council member whose family member is on that committee can't vote. So let's just say that Parks and Rec brings something forward,
I see.
and my husband sits on it, I can't vote.
I see.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay. So I'll ask another question of Hillary and possibly Sabrina. Is there currently a mechanism for removing a advisory board member? Because the last time I had asked about that, there was no real mechanism for that.
So it depends, and I'm just going to say that because in the bylaws, we do have what you guys talked about as a council, that if somebody's not attending meetings, for instance, and hasn't been attending meetings, the chair can advise us, the mayor's office, that there is a concern about their attendance, and then at that point, there are action steps that can be taken. You can also not reconfirm somebody. There are different steps depending on the situation.
So I actually have an example of this last year where it happens to be the exact chairperson we're talking about scheduled a meeting with me because we had 2 people. One was having a medical issue that was going to be on an extended absence, and she didn't want them to have to forfeit their position on the committee. And she felt like as long as we granted them this grace period because of the medical thing they were going through, that they would be back and in full support of it. And I told her that if that was her desire, I would support her in that because she knew better than I did. I mean, with respect to her own commission. So I all of that is to say that I think the chairperson feels empowered enough to come in and have a conversation with me, and then we would make a determination. If the question is, in the instance, if it were a chairperson that we were looking to need to remove for any sort of reason, and correct me if I'm wrong, Hillary and Sabrina, because I always look to the 2 of you, but I would take that action based upon they essentially serve at the pleasure of the mayor. Is that not correct?
New mayors have come into office.
We're not all answering at once. As I said, in the bylaws, there are roles and restrictions that we've utilized, and and there's also a reconfirmation process as well.
So so to address your question specifically, Eric, I feel like, or Councilmember Marshall, I'm sorry, I feel like if there were an instance where there were a specific person that were rising to the level of we were having to do something and maybe remove them from a position, I would do that through the issuance of a memorandum or a letter removing them from the commission at that time. Does that make sense or answer your question?
It does. So if I'm hearing Sabrina correctly, in the bylaws, it's specific to attendance. And I just want to be very clear on something, Mayor. I am not talking about any one person in particular.
I
And so
understand.
you mentioned that we were talking about a specific chair at this particular time. This conversation for me is not based upon any one individual. This is a policy decision.
And Councilmember Marshall, there is language that gives the mayor, he's right, to serve at the pleasure of the mayor. So we have language in there.
And I'm not saying that you're focusing on one person. In my example, I was focusing on a specific situation, and I'm acknowledging, though, that there's one specific person that has felt the brunt of this, and I just wanted to acknowledge that and also offer my sympathy in respect to her feelings and what she's been through, because she is a volunteer. I did the same thing when it was Commissioner Scribner, and she went through what she went through. So I would do this for any of my volunteers, no matter who they were. So again, I was just acknowledging that from that level. So
my understanding, though, from our workshop, it does not affect just this particular individual, but it also affects one other person that has a familiar family relationship that sits on one of our boards currently.
But I think that you guys have already determined that degree of familiar relationship wouldn't come under this threshold. Am I correct?
Well, also
we haven't agreed to anything.
No,
yet
but I
at
mean,
this
what we're
but-
talking about moving forward would.
But at a nepotism clause, at its just on its face, would affect that particular person, and it could potentially affect because of the board that person is on. So I'm not saying
No, that
this
is true. Yeah, absolutely.
And so it does. It's not about, again, an individual. It's about the process. It's about the policy.
Yes,
and so
you are correct.
I apologize to anybody whose feelings were hurt. That is not the intent of any of this.
Yes.
And I do apologize to Carrie. It is not intended. I've tried very hard just to not mention any names because it is not about an individual person.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And so the only reason I asked that question is Councilmember Arms had said that if there's a problem, then we can remove. And I just wanted to make sure there was a mechanism for removing somebody if and when there is a problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
Councilmember Marshall?
Yes, ma'am.
Just to let you know, in I believe it's ordinance option 2, number 3 says the city council will not appoint or confirm appointment of relatives of city council members to the salary commission or the civil service commission. The one position that we're talking about, I believe, falls on the civil service commission. So for that reason, it would be excluded from this process. So the other individual in regards to this wouldn't be included.
So if we were to pass this as it's presented right now, and we were to make it effective immediately, that would affect that one person on civil service, correct?
Correct. They would not be impacted.
They would be impacted. They would be removed from the Civil Service Commission.
Yeah, we would not, yes.
I'm not sure that person is not related to a city council member. And that's the language.
This is true, okay.
So there's 2 layers there.
Yes, it's the relative of an employee. It's not the relative of a council member. So it's an apple and an orange. That's why I think Sabrina's telling you it would not affect that person.
Understood. Okay. All right. I have no further. Thank you.
Yep. Mayor Pro. Oh, I'm sorry. We already knew your position.
Let me
Yeah.
modify. So one, I mean, with the whole voting thing, like imagine someone got on the planning commission. Good night. I don't know how someone would not, how would we be able to do our job? And as I've said before, there's 7 people on most of these commissions, and sometimes the recommendation of the commission may not even be the recommendation of your family member. I will say with the chair, I don't hate the idea of not allowing them to be a chair. I don't think don't think it's necessary, but I also will say, having been on many boards and commissions, what happens? Who wants to be a chair? Everyone looks at each other. Well, I'll be the vice chair, or if you're a volunteer, I'll be the treasurer. Nobody typically wants to be the chair. So sometimes it's a trick just to get that position filled. But I mean, I'm not like strongly opposed to it because I understand the optics of the situation. That's a word I use all the time. But I don't know if it's fully necessary. So.
Thank you, Councilmember Stuckey. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. I agree with Councilmember Stuckey. I think, I mean, again, we can overcomplicate this to death and hoping to prevent something. I mean, they're advisory boards, guys. It's not that deep. The not allowing a council person to vote on a recommendation brought forward by a board that their relative happens to participate in, that's a bridge too far for me. I'm adamantly opposed to that. Because again, yeah, the planning commission, my nephew could be on the planning commission and he could have been in the minority, vote against something, against a recommendation that the planning commission, and so because my nephew voted against, he wasn't in favor of the recommendation that the planning commission is bringing in front of us, then I can't vote on anything having to do with the plan. Like, I mean, it's just, we can get tangled up in this all day long, and to me, that's too much. If we're not actively appointing or serving on the board with our family, I mean, we're elected to do a job. There's conflicts all over the place. We all know people. We all have opinions. We all have relationships. People have influence. They have sway. It happens, and we have to use our best judgment. And if we're at a point where a recommendation brought forward by a majority of a body of 7 people, and we're, again, just one vote of 7, if we don't have the discretion to see through that process to make a vote, then we shouldn't be up here. If we're trying to regulate things to this extent, then we shouldn't be up here. So that's, I think that we are already kind of overcomplicating it, but if that's gonna make, people comfortable, I'm okay, again, like I said, with the compromise. But saying that a council person can't vote on a committee or a board recommendation because of the proximity of a member on it, to me, that's unnecessarily restrictive.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Wigginstein.
Yeah, let's just kiss this thing and keep it super simple, right? Like, let's not make this overcomplicated. The more you restrict access, the less volunteers you're going to get. I too believe that, if I have to recuse myself because a family member is on an advisory board, then I would ask that family member to not be on the advisory board, because my job is up here to represent the citizens of Oak Harbor, not my family members necessarily. They might be different. And so I do understand that process and whatnot. I think we just, are we going to require a newborn to know how to do the alphabet right away before they can, I don't know. I'm just stretching it here, but for real. I think we're complicating it, and we don't need to. Let's just keep it simple.
Thank you, Councilmember Wigginstein. Councilmember Arms.
I agree with Councilmember Wigginstein. Let's just keep it simple. If we have a problem, like with 2, with whatever we're going to pick, whenever we decide to go back, why don't we look at it? We can re-look at it in a year. Did this work? Did this not work? Are we having problems? This is an experiment that we're trying. This has not been here ever. And why don't we just keep it simple? Instead of making it all complicated, do this, that, and the other thing, let's just keep it simple. Let's just keep the whole thing simple, and option 2 is fine. And then let's say in a year, let's just make it that in a year, we will evaluate our decision, see where we have problems, whether pro, con, or what things we've come against. But we're anticipating something we don't know. Let's just keep it simple. Let's just keep going. And if we have a problem, the mayor has told us we need to go to him and explain it, and the mayor can handle the problem. I think we just leave it alone and then take care of it next year and say, evaluate what happened, and then make a change if we have to. This is getting, we'll be here all year trying to discuss this.
Thank you, Councilmember Arms. Councilmember Peterson.
Thank you, council and fellow council members, for your responses. At this time, I would like to make a motion.
No,
if I
no,
may.
there's no motion. We're not, there's nothing to vote on tonight. It's-
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it's
So what
okay.
So what I would like us to consider, I am. I said that was going to be the hardest part of this job for me, was how slow the wheels turn. Can I make a suggestion then? Is that what I can do?
You can do whatever, you can suggest whatever you want. This is your workshop, so.
Okay,
yeah.
so then I would like to suggest that we consider number 2, and as far as number 4, underneath section 1, we restrict it to spouse, domestic partner, child, stepchild, parent, step-parent. Leave it alone at that and call it a day.
So is that the same, and is that in line with what Councilmember Stuckey had asked, with being in line with what's in our employee policy manual?
I
Because we were going to
believe
have
so.
her mirror that, is essentially what we were proposing to do.
I believe so, unless the
So, but
cities
your
deem-
desire is for it to mirror what's in the employee policy manual. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
I think so. I just didn't want it to go so deep as to go to brothers and
It's gonna be that
sisters-in-laws.
deep.
Is it that deep? Okay,
There's no option.
okay,
We're gonna mirror.
okay.
Okay?
Okay, then mirror.
Okay.
And call it a day. Let's just go with the number 2, call it a
All
day.
right,
gives
so
it
it
something.
sounds like we have general consensus or majority consensus on this now. I'm about to say this is a wrap on this issue and we're going to move on. Are we all good and everyone has had their piece and we can move on? Yes, Councilmember Romero.
So with regard to the subject of family members being the chair, is there any, okay, I'm seeing what's your take on that, Councilmember Peterson?
You can't ask me.
I cannot ask?
I think you have to ask.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's all goodwill, but,
I know.
sure, right.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll have her clarify her position on that, but I believe, like, I'll have her clarify her position. I'm not going to speculate. So is that all you need?
I did want to, just to, not a contrarian, but I want to make sure it's accurate. And that is that there are those people, from my personal experience, who crave so much to be the chair of anything, especially when they pour their whole lives into something, that it becomes kind of a fiefdom or a fiefdom for them, and that they defend it tooth and nail. And then also, with regard to the influence of the commissions, it's been noted at this council that overwhelmingly the recommendations from commissions get approved by the council, so that there is a substantial power there. So I just wanted to make certain that I stated that for the record. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah. And Councilmember Peterson, just for the record, are you in support of option 2 with as written, or do you want language added that says the chair of a committee cannot be the family member of a council person?
No, I don't believe it is the desire of this body for that to happen. So I don't believe that would pass, and we'd end up spending too much time. I would be in favor of going with it as written, although I have reservations about there should be more restrictions, but I don't think the body's ready for that.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah. So again, I just want to make sure that we have a general consensus of what you all are feeling and we have an idea for the language, because what I don't want to do is have a 3-hour discussion in a week from now at a council meeting. So we already have a majority of a vote going in a certain direction, but I think that you guys need to also be on the same page with the language that's going to be included in that ordinance. So are you guys there or are you not there? And Mayor Pro Tem, I'm going to turn it over to you.
So when we bring this back at the next meeting, and it's the language or option 2, whatever it is, and we call for a vote, we have a couple council people who might not like it, and they don't have to like it, and they can vote no. And but what we don't want to happen is to try to like re-wordsmith the whole thing. So like it is what it is. If you feel very strongly about adding language about the chair or whatever, then we can hash that out now. But yeah, what we don't want is to bring it back thinking that we kind of know where things are gonna fall and then have, things kind of blow up on us. So it's, if, everybody doesn't have to love it, we'll vote for it and that will fall where it is. But is the language that is currently presented something that we can live with voting on? Or do we need to amend it? Would you, like, for example, would Councilmember Marrow be in favor, would he become a yes vote on option 2 if the language about a family member not being a chair of a committee was added?
May I answer that?
So Councilmember Romero, yes, you may answer the question.
Yes, I would. I would also remain with option 1 if it is not.
Thank
Which
you.
I don't think it matters then. You have your 5 votes.
Well,
so.
I mean, yeah, but still, it's, yeah, want to know what to expect. So, so Hillary could. Right, so yeah, the language has to be updated anyway in terms of what constitutes a relative to be consistent with the employee manual. So would it be terribly labor intensive for you to have a version of option 2 that includes language also about a family member not being a chair of a advisory board or a committee as an option for us to add or subtract?
Very easy to do. What I'll do in your agenda packet is make 2 versions of version 2, one with the chair and one without, so that it's easier for you to vote on or move and vote.
Yeah.
That makes sense? Okay.
Having the options in front of us to vote on or not versus trying to work
Exactly.
during a meeting. Okay, just, yeah,
Thank you, Hillary.
thank you.
And are we all good? Oh, no, I see a hand. Yes, Councilmember Marrow.
I am not a pugilist. I'm not a boxer or a contrarian. And so when I see how things are going, then I roll with the group. I would roll with the council. So even though I can take a strong position, which I have, I can live with whatever the council agrees upon. That's all.
Great, thank you for that. So are we completely done now? Everyone has said their piece and we feel good and we're going to move on.
Grab my water.
Okay, good. Because I really don't want to.
Grabbing my water.
All right, so with that, we are going then to move on to the next item, which is city council comments. I'd like to take a few minutes to invite council members to provide any updates on the city's boards, commissions, or comments on which they serve. Any,
It's usually part of the city council.
yes, I'm pretty sure I'm on track. I love that all of you like to keep me on track, though. Thank you for reminding me. Any council member who wishes to report does so now. Thank you. Yes, Councilmember Arms.
From Marble Mount, we got the hatchery. We got the fingerlings in this Wednesday, I think it was the 21st. And it was quite the exciting time with the fog and the cold, but eventually it lifted. And so we have active 30 little fingerlings. And then Saturday, I was down there feeding, I was down there watching them, the young kids feed them. We had about 12 people down there. So it's an exciting, and it's Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, 9 to 9:30, somewhere in that vicinity. I think it says 9:30 on the thing. So it was an exciting time to see them come back.
Thank you, Councilmember Arms. Councilmember Stuckey.
A couple things. One, again, appreciate the moment of silence for Chaplain Lura, or Oak Harbor Chaplain. Oak Harbor's Chaplain, as I like to refer to him. Services are going to be held February 3rd, 1 p.m. at Oak Harbor Lutheran. Regards to committees, still waiting for my first planning commission for round 2. I did it 5 months ago. But exciting, finally, after strong push, I'll put it that way, the tourism new interlocal is finished. It went to Coopville, it's either last night or tonight, and then we'll start making its way through the municipalities. So when we see it come through here, if we could try to get on sooner rather than later. We're kind of in a weird limbo where our board isn't meeting So it would be good to get that done, but should all be resolved here in a month or so.
Nice. Thank you for that. Councilmember Romero.
Mayor Wright, I would like to state that I try to be diligent in reporting about the island transit developments to the council and to the citizens. And for that matter, I would like to mention specifically, I'm not putting Cynthia Mason on the spot, but she did send me an interesting request to take to Island Transit with regard to putting poetry and other things posted within the buses. And my comment was, of course, that I don't make that decision, but that I will pursue the alternative at Island Transit and, of course, with the city as appropriate. But I did make mention that just because somebody comes up with some poetry that they want to put up doesn't mean it's necessarily suitable to put on a bus. And then, of course, there's all kinds of regulations, rules, and laws and everything. So I did want to state that. And then also, based on just, although for me it's hearsay, I have reason to think it is accurate that before, the previous years, Island Transit was really in a straits. And I'm just, it's really actually refreshing to go to the meetings because, there's strong discipline with regard to the fiscal matter. And I'll use an illustration here, like they had countless tens of thousands of dollars in inventory that had been stowed away and it was depreciating and not usable. But the executive director went to, I think it was Napa, but they would take it back. So this was really a plus up with regard to, funding and consequently, I'm just proud of that development. That's all I have, Mayor.
Great. They can afford to pay those high salaries. That's good. So I would recommend that you partner with Miss Cynthia Mason to invite her to your next meeting so that maybe she could speak or make a presentation for her pitch on including poetry and artwork on the buses. It would be great for them to hear that directly from the source rather than coming through you. So that's what I would recommend. Anybody else for the good of the order before we move on? All right, well, we are going to move on then to community partner presentations. We have one today. And speaking of Ms. Cynthia Mason, here from the Oak Harbor Creative Arts Foundation, we have a memorandum of understanding, and here to present is Cynthia Mason, our president. What? No, that's what I have on my agenda.
I didn't expect to present.
Oh, but you don't have to present, and then just
Okay.
talk about what you're doing
Okay.
and what it is. So that's fine.
I'm glad this is a workshop and it's less formal, right?
Yeah.
So the Memorandum of Understanding is a vehicle to deepen the relationship with the Oak Harbor Creative Arts Foundation and the city. We've been at the table working towards a few initiatives for a few years now, and have stepped into a phase 1 feasibility study with one of 6 contractors selected in October, and jumped into a process to prove donor capacity and community support with a company out of Arizona called campaignCouncil.org. We did we were given the opportunity to present to the Arts Commission last December in hopes to be here with you today, and and they gave us 100% support in entering into this agreement. I have 2 other board members here with me today, Lynn Goebel and Margaret Kroom. Do you have anything to add? I feel my face getting very red. Your packet contains a sample MOU that Hillary worked on after meeting with her and Sabrina a couple of times throughout last year, as well as the slide deck presentation that was given to the Arts Commission, bringing you up to date where the foundation is at with its processes. So I suppose the ultimate goal would be to collaborate with the Arts Commission. A lot of our visions or missions overlap with each other as far as not just the 2 initiatives of a performing arts and event center and makerspace, but other means of supporting the arts culture in Oak Harbor, and more strength in numbers. Also, the sample of like the Senior Center has its foundation as a nonprofit that it works in tandem with. This too is a way for the Arts Commission in the city to have a partner in the nonprofit world to move things forward.
So with that, I was going to call upon council for their questions or comments of Ms. Cynthia Mason at this time with respect to this project. Do you have one? Councilmember Romero?
Thank you, Ms. Mason.
You're welcome.
Oh, that's it, okay. Anything else from council? Yes, Councilmember Peterson.
I'm curious in looking at the drawing that you had, what are we expecting the seating capacity of this to be?
The vision would be to reach about a 500-seat capacity. I always say if I could plop McIntyre Hall in Oak Harbor somewhere, I'd be in heaven. It would support a lot of needs island-wide, so I suspect that these initiatives will benefit all of Whidbey Island too. Business conferences, events, etc. You're welcome.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. The Performing Arts Center design concept, which has me very excited. I am a self-professed theater nerd, and I sat on the board at the Whidbey Playhouse for many years, and expanding and upgrading that performance space, any performance space really in the city, is something that's very much on their radar. Have you been in touch with the board at Whidbey Playhouse? Do they have an opinion about this? Is this like a joint effort, or is this just another performing arts center that's going up and an opportunity to have arts in the city? Is there any kind of a partnership there, or?
Yes, no, yes, yes.
Maybe.
I'm not sure I had all those in the right order, Ms. Tara.
It was all one big question.
The concept right here is definitely a very high level. Stig Carlson out of Coopville helped put this together for just our introduction to the community. It is our intention to get in front of a lot of our other like-minded establishments like the Playhouse. We've certainly talked over chamber luncheons or at different events, so they know what we're up to, and they will be invited to the table. It's very important we have their voices. And again, I see this as a benefit to what they're doing to enhance, even with Wicca down in Langley. It's not to take the pie and run with it. It's to make sure that everybody has a piece of it.
God forbid there be too much performing arts or too much musical theater. Oh no, that would be terrible. But it does make sense for a big project to maybe pool resources. I know if they've been socking money away for years, and if Wicca has access to something, it would make sense to kind of join forces and
absolutely
and have one big great project as opposed to several smaller ones. So. Okay, I was just kind of curious how that was going to...
And I'm going to play off that big project, if I could. It's not a secret that you all are faced with a lot of big projects right now for Oak Harbor in its growing pains that we're all witnessing. The Marina, your own facilities, it's a belief and a vision of this incredible board that I have the privilege of working with, that all of those can be achieved if we do have all the voices at the table to get them done simultaneously and most economic for the municipality and for the island.
That makes a lot of sense to me. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Stuckey.
I am curious, as we've talked about this indoor rec center, and we're going to be doing that feasibility here soon, remembering that is a feasibility study. Can it be done? We don't know. I mean, the first step is a feasibility study. It's not saying no matter what this is going to happen. Has there been any conversation about, I mean, we're talking, if this rec center does happen, it could be a very large building. You're talking about a large building. Has there ever been talk between the two of a compromise in the middle? Like, hey, maybe the rec center's a little bit bigger and can accommodate this, or maybe it's convertible. I mean, has there been any talk about the joining of forces, or at least the conversation about, hey, in the feasibility study, we could at least look at it?
Yes. The gentleman that sparked the idea with a few of the council persons, Jake Marriott, and I have had a handful of conversations in the vision, and keeping them separate was probably the most amicable, just because of what one would serve and the other. I also want to mention that Larry Mason, who is part of this board, is also on the advisory board for the rec center. So as they're stepping through their processes with that complete feasibility study, hence the price tag on that effort versus our price tag of $35,000, which is, again, just a very small step. But we wanted to take the elephant in small chunks, especially with the feasibility study of the rec center on the table. I sit on the Arts Commission, and we just tasked our community with surveys and opinions on that. So we need to kind of we need to work together so we don't overtask our community with repetitive questions on what they see needs are. And to state here publicly, the Arts Commission's plan, that those voices that came to the table, I think it was within the top 2 or 3 items mentioned, was a space for art, performing arts and events was needed.
You touched on an important thing about multiple projects going out at once, and I'm just making sure that by doing, you guys doing this, which is more private-based, and us doing the other, which is more municipal-based, that we don't conflict, and that neither of them happen, because there's some people, we really want this, but not this. We really want this, but not this. I would hate for see them both fail, just because, I mean, it's kind of like when you have 2 competing levies from 2 different municipalities, from one municipality, and then one's for police, or one's for Northby Fire.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a chance that those 2 things on the ballot could conflict. Same thing here. I just want to make sure that, I mean, I'd love to have it all, and I'd like to see us have it all. I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm just saying I don't want one to have any potential to sabotage another, not intentionally, but unintentionally. Like you mentioned, survey fatigue. I mean, that could draw away from one of them.
Sure.
So
Perfect
coordinating timing is important.
Yeah, perfect
So
timing.
thank you.
So not to misspeak either, but just to provide more context. So when we were originally looking at this early last year, met with Cynthia and Ms. Lynn Goebel and Sabrina and myself, and in discussions with Hillary and doing some research, we did consider bringing this under the umbrella of the feasibility study with the rec center, but there are a lot of restrictions that were placed upon that grant that we received for that feasibility study that precluded us from including this as part of that project. So we went out, and this is all private donor raised money that went out and got the feasibility study done. And correct me if I'm wrong, but pretty much everything that you're going to be looking at doing going forward too is going to be private donor based, and it's not going to be a public initiative. So in no way would this be competing with something else on a ballot, is what I'm saying to.
I'm just using that example.
Yeah, I'm just
public perception.
Yeah, well, I mean, and again, though, that's a marketing genius standing in front of you, so she will make sure that that's conveyed accurately and to the community. But because I am biasly part of this as well, we're working, on a completely different track than what we're doing municipality-wise. So.
And grant money. We do
and grant money. Sorry,
seek
yes,
out
grant money.
grants.
Yes,
So,
yeah.
we received a grant from the Whidbey Community Foundation and one
Yeah.
from the state's tourism board to help achieve that first goal of $35,000 to go into contract.
Yeah. So, all right. Any other questions? Yes, Councilmember Wittgenstein.
Thank you, Cynthia, for sharing this. I'm excited. I am just a big fan of the performing arts and how it's a lack of an activity we have in this community. I think this will bring people to the community no matter what, and I believe we have enough space and the ability to support both. It'd be nice to have one big multi-purpose building that's it's got wings and we can do all this all year round. That would be ideal, I think. But at the same time, multiple. We have a pretty active arts and we have a pretty active sports, and I could see a lot of conflicts in scheduling in a one building facility. So this is awesome. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you.
I'm going to end with, we're very proud to say that the Whidbey Royalty, the court has selected our project to help champion its cause too. So you'll be hearing from the Royals.
That's
That makes
exciting.
us happy.
That's awesome.
Work for the rec center.
Thank Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cynthia. All right, so in nothing else from Ms. Cynthia Mason, before we move on to the last item on the agenda, I'm sorry, y'all, but I am calling for a 10-minute recess. We will reconvene in 10 minutes, so. All right, as it is 2:40, we will reconvene the city council workshop and we will proceed to the last item on our agenda of Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan 2026 to 2030. And here to introduce this topic is our Fire Chief, Travis Anderson.
Mayor, Council, thank you for your time. In front of you is just a draft version of the Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan. A big portion of this was pushed out to the individual departments that play a role in it, and so they had the ability to provide feedback. This also went to our city attorney to also review. She did review key pieces on it. It is a very lengthy. I can get this to work. You want to advance it here? Okay. All right, so state law requires the city of Oak Harbor to establish and maintain a local emergency management organization and develop, maintain, and submit a comprehensive emergency management plan. I would say that we're not absolutely required because we don't take any grant funding. There has been discussion in going after emergency management performance grant funds, and so we want to make sure we comply with this so we can actually go and receive those funds if we decide to go that direction. Every 5 years, it is required to be updated and ensure it meets compliance with the state requirement plans. So back in March of 2025, I presented to the City Council a quick discussion about emergency management. We talked about the comprehensive emergency plan and the need for it to be redone this year. So that's where I'm coming back for. We also talked about some of the challenges of, I guess, the way things have possibly done in the past or the agreements that we had. One of those is sharing the Emergency Operations Center with Island County. There's a few unique challenges with that. One being that the Island County Comprehensive Emergency Plan states that they will run their EOC and it's their director. Our operating plan, our Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan states our EOC and our director. So you can see right there we have some conflict if we have one EOC and we're calling it two different things. And that was one thing we discussed back in March. Additionally, another challenge that I see is Island County changed their comprehensive emergency management plan to a support model structure, where Oak Harbor has an ICS-like model structure. So these are two different organizational structures inside one EOC. Again, if we train people on ICS and Island County trains people on a support model, we're teaching two different ways to do something, and there's going to be conflict in the EOC. Our people aren't going to be able to fit into their positions, and their people aren't going to be able to fit into our positions. So this is just a quick little example. They look
ICS, Incident Command Systems?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. So you can see on the, I need my glasses. On the left is, I got you. An ICS type structure. You'll see that it kind of mirrors what we do out in the field with an operations section, a coordination section, a planning, logistics, and finance. And that is how our comprehensive emergency plan is written and how we train. On the right is Island County's. You'll see they have, instead of an operations section, they have an awareness section. They do have a planning support section that mirrors the other planning coordination. Then instead of a logistics, they have a resource support section. And then we have a finance admin that's tracking costs. They have a center support section. And under each one of those are different as well. So those are just a few of the challenges that we currently have with the plan that's set in Oak Harbor and Island County. So one of the recommendations back in March was each one of you preferred that we continue to work with Island County, try to partner with them, and try to figure out some solutions. I know several of you came to a class I taught for council and directors, senior leaders, basically a policy level class. I know the mayor and the county commissioners came to a class together. I think there's that intent that we work together. I think we just need to solve some of these challenges. Currently, there is no emergency management director for Island County. They're out there trying to refill it. The person that was there is no longer there. So moving forward, there's really not a partner to discuss these conversations on how we align our comprehensive emergency management plans, how we train, how we do things together until they get that position filled. But to kind of honor what was the request of City Council, I did rewrite the comprehensive emergency plan to allow for some flexibility so we can go that route if we can figure out how to do that better. So one thing I would say is the comprehensive emergency management plan. This is a very old plan. in its whole. It's probably been around 15 plus years, probably hasn't been redone when you look at it. Typically, when a brand new comprehensive emergency management plan is done, you usually bring in a consultant to rewrite this. It's a lot of work and a lot of time unless you have an individual that you don't need to do anything for the next 6 months but work on that plan, which we usually don't have. And obviously, that would be expensive and it would be timely, time consuming. And I feel like we need to figure out what we want to do here on Island County and Oak Harbor before we start spending taxpayers' money on a solution that we don't even know that's the solution we want yet. So I was hoping Island County would have that position filled sooner than later so we could start having those conversations. So again, this plan was rewritten to meet the state requirements, rewritten to meet FEMA's requirements on things like lifelines, to align us with what the EOC is, which is a coordination center, not an operations center. There was a lot of language that was conflicting in there. But I would recommend that for sure next cycle that this whole thing is rewritten and we look at bringing a consultant in or finding someone that has a lot of time to sit there and focus on this to rewrite it. But there has been conversation. There is other jurisdictions that the county and cities or multiple cities work together and do one plan, one EOC. I've seen it in as big as cities or counties that have more than 600,000 people, that 9 cities can come together and do this. So I'm assuming the county and Oak Harbor that we have the talent to do that as well. So really quick, just to go in the changes, one thing that wasn't in there was a policy group. We had an emergency preparedness group that pretty much had every single director involved in it. But when you looked at our org chart, it had city council and it had the mayor at the top. Typically when you have emergency, you have a policy group that will set and meet and provide some expectations, some overall arching objectives, and they're also there in case you need to make protective measures in the community. For example, mandatory evacuations, doing curfew, stuff that will take city council's work to get done. So when you look at those, typically in most policy groups, and this is how I aligned it, it's departments that are over emergency support functions. We need the city clerk in there to execute some documents, obviously the city attorney to provide guidance, and then city council and the mayor and city administrator, and most importantly, the finance director, because all this is going to cost money and he needs to figure out where it's coming from. So the recommendation that I would have for the policy group, and I know there has been some discussion on this from staff, is to have the city council, city administrator, finance director, city attorney, the police chief, fire chief, and public works director. All the ESFs fall under one of these 3 directors, with the exception of a new one, cybersecurity, that we put in, which would be our cybersecurity administrator. I'm not sure that they would need to be in there in every single emergency, so they were excluded. But by no means does this mean that the mayor, city council, city administrator can't ask another director to be in there because maybe they feel they have some good guidance or it impacts their area of expertise, or maybe they just have a lot of emergency management experience. So there's nothing in this document that precludes city council or the mayor or city administrator from making some changes on the fly. This is just a guidebook of giving us best practice how we should move forward during a disaster. So here's what the previous document showed, and again, that mayor, city council, that's that policy group. But most of the work is going to be done in the EOC, which the Director of Emergency Services will oversee the ops planning, logistics, and finance section as it's laid out in ICS. So under there is the EOC. So one section I added to it was the multi-agency coordination group, which complies with FEMA doctrine. This would give us the ability to merge Oak Harbor and Island County, and really anyone else that wanted to participate, into one policy group. Say we have a major wildfire or an earthquake or something that's impacting multiple jurisdictions, we could align one MAC group and have everyone working towards the same priority and plans, and have one EOC working for that policy group. It would be really hard to have an EOC group working for a policy group for one jurisdiction and a policy group for the other jurisdiction. So again, and the recommendation would be that is the between the mayor, county commission, and the emergency service director on who would be in that MAC group. It isn't specified in this document, but it does give us the ability to establish a multi-agency coordination group. And again, the MAC group will just execute high-level strategic guidance for disaster response. They're not going to be down in the weeds. They're not going to decide how we're going to do evacuations. They're going to help us execute stuff like mandatory curfews and evacuations on making them mandatory and who they're going to evacuate and those type of things. The MAC group will provide recommendations to an EOC manager to get around who is that EOC manager. Our document says it's Oak Harbors. Island County says it's their EOC manager. This would be the MAC group would decide who would be the EOC manager. And in my opinion, you're going to need Island County and Oak Harbor 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. One person can't do this on their own. So I would look at it. What would make the most sense for me is you have Island County's emergency service director. You have Oak Harbor's alternating 12-hour shifts. That would give you a qualified EOC manager the entire time. So some of the other key changes, this will be really quick, is remove the command language from the EOC. The EOC is a support mechanism. They're not an incident command or a command and control mechanism. We provide stuff that PD needs or fire needs or public works needs to be successful out in the field. Whether it's sandbags, more people, the National Guard, whatever it is, we make those recommendations or those requests through the county and to the state governor's office. Activation levels to make them in line with FEMA, incorporated the community lifelines, which came out about 5 or 6 years ago, updated a chart of responsibility, and created emergency support function 2.1, which is cybersecurity, which in my opinion is probably our biggest threat when it comes to terrorism. So here's our level of activation. So we used to have 3. Really, you usually don't see a number 4, but our number 4 was number 3, which is just normal operations. What we're doing today, there's nothing going on in the EOC. A level 3 activation is where we're monitoring. Doesn't mean we have to actually staff people in the EOC, but it means we're paying attention to what's going on. The flooding that just recently happened was a great example. We activated a level 3, and then we had, not the policy group, but we had directors that were involved in our day-to-day business, having meetings, discussing what was going on, whether it was Director Schuler on what's the water supply status. We had the HR director, how does this impact our employees? The police chief was talking about traffic issues where we can continue to share information. That would be like a level 3. If we had an actual emergency, Steve called up and said, hey, we're out of water, or we're going to be out of water in a day or two, we may do a partial activation and bring in key players. If we had a major earthquake, major fire, that would be a level 1 activation. Everyone would come in. Again, the EOC would be working for the emergency service director, who'd be taking guidance from the policy group, which would be city council and the mayor. This is just an updated chart of responsibility. We moved some people around, changed a few things. Again, this is our line of succession. So if I'm not there to run the EOC, it means Tony's in charge of running the EOC. So, and he can put someone in his place, one of his personnel, if they're qualified. Just means they are tasked with that responsibility. The community lifelines, that's how FEMA looks at how do we take care of people during a disaster. These are what they've determined they need for their health and their security, is these 3 things. So as we look at what's going on, we look and see how they impact each one of these items. These were included in the comprehensive emergency management plan. Then I put like a crosswalk. So it shows what ESF Director Schuler has in Public Works and how that impacts each one of those lifelines. So when his team's looking at what's going on and what the impacts are, this hyper focuses them back to lifelines and what our community needs to be taken care of. We added the cybersecurity annex. That was one we didn't have, but one we definitely need for some type of terrorism incident when it comes to cybersecurity. Then that was kind of the phases of operation in that. The detect, contain, eradicate, recover, learn, and prepare. That's the cycle that we would use going through that ESF. So next steps is February 3rd, we'll come back after everyone's had an opportunity to look through it, read through it, provide any feedback if we need to make any changes. We'll come back for adoption of that. And ongoing from that, we'll continue to have further discussions with Island County to discuss our EOC, hopefully joint training, and staffing an EOC together. I do think that's the best course of action. We're a relatively small organization when it comes to how much staffing an EOC is needed. And then continue to do more EOC and ICS training for our own city staff. I know I put on about 15 days of classes last year, so we'll continue to do that. And we're also required under this document to complete an annual exercise to test our training and our plan. So we will also look at putting something together. I believe it's in September. We're looking at doing some type of exercise that we put on the calendar. And that's all I have. I don't know if there's any questions.
Questions from council? Councilmember Romero?
I want to see you eye to eye, Chief Anderson. Thank you for such an excellent report. I did go page by page through it twice, and I would say that because I do have experience in drafting emergency procedures and cataclysmic manuals and things like that in the Navy, I would say that that product, put the Navy's stuff to shame, but don't report me to the naval base. Anyway, so I just wanted to state, though, that as you well know, there are countless myriads of permutations of variables that you're trying to take into consideration, even for known unknowns with regard to a disaster. But what I'm recalling from 9/11 is that the vice president was reporting, as I remember it, he was reporting on the report with regard to 9/11, and he said the one thing that was lacking was imagination with regard to what a terrorist group could do. So I'm just asking in broad, briefly, if you have something that's totally unpredictable. I mean, we can speak about an earthquake destroying the bridge, right? And that's unpredictable, but at least you got an idea. But with regard to a completely unpredictable scenario, say some sort of attack or something like this, I would request that you briefly mention the general first steps with regard to the leadership in getting the wheels moving on it, because, of course, 9/11, there was much trouble getting the wheels moving.
Sure. What most plans have gone to is more of a process than it is a operational plan. You'll find a lot of this is very, very specific, and what we found during disasters is that it doesn't work out that way. Take COVID for example. Almost every single jurisdiction had a pandemic plan, but it was pretty much worthless with COVID. Like I said, I've been involved in taking the FEMA team across countries of disasters, was in the largest mass shooting, that the U.S. has experienced. It's rare that your comprehensive emergency management plan or your emergency operation plan addresses a specific incident. What we want to do is teach process. How does the policy group work? What are your guys' roles? You know what you do when you get in there. The EOC, we want them to know how to function in the EOC. How does the planning process work? How do we develop a support plan? Out in the field, we want to teach incident management. So we teach decision-making process, we teach flow, and then they can focus on the disaster, not how to do the work, but how to specifically address the issue at hand. And that is the goal of most of these. And so we start dividing this up. Like we'll take Parks and Recs. They've been giving the shelter annex or that ESF for mass care, right? So what we want them to be able to do is how do they open up a shelter? Where are their shelters at? Where are their supplies? How do they open up? Every single one of these disasters, let's say it's a wildfire and we need to evacuate people. Say it's an earthquake and their homes have been condemned or they can't stay there. Let's say it's a hazmat, right? A big thing they may need or a large apartment fire is shelter. How do we execute a shelter plan? There are all these little pieces that we put together. Again, we can go back to a wildfire. Like, there's been questions in the past, what is our wildfire plan? Well, my question would be is, what part of the island is the wildfire on? Because if it's right in the middle of Oak Harbor and you live south end of Oak Harbor, you might have a different plan than if you live on the north part, right? So we want to exercise and train to put out rapid emergency notifications. We want to be able to provide accurate information timely so people have the best protective measures. It's hard to sit here and say, if this happens, we're going to do this, this, and this, because there's so many different variables of what can happen, as you mentioned. So having well-trained people and a plan that demonstrates how they're supposed to organize and execute is better than the specific emergency. That makes sense.
Thank you. I'm reminded of a quote from a military leader. I can't remember who it was that made it famous, but he basically said, plans are worthless, but planning is absolutely essential. It might have been Eisenhower, but anyway, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilmember Romero. Anybody else for the good of the order? All right, thank you, Chief. We appreciate the presentation. We will continue to work collaboratively with the county. And we look forward to bringing this back on February 3rd. So with that being the last item on the agenda, thank you. There being no further business, the City Council workshop